presentation is being recorded.
This meeting is being recorded.
So I wanted, to give you that heads up. I'm also going to start sharing my screen and share our presentation with you. So this is a part of our Lunch and Learn Zoom series, and we are doing this in order to try and give information to parents in a way that is hopefully quick and easy and useful for all of you. We have 7 different topics that we're going to cover throughout the course of the year, and we hope that you will make plans to join us for all of those. But again, so for today, we're going to jump right into things. I hope, as I'm having trouble. Man, I might have to give you slide control because I'm not able to get mine to move. Do you want to see if you can make it move slides?
Yep, that's fine.
All right.
Here we go.
So as I mentioned, today's topic for our presentation is going to be developing a test prep plan. So we're really focusing a lot on the pre-SAT and the pre-ACT and giving information about those, because I know that's an area that can be super confusing to a lot of students and families. And so we want you to have that information. If you have questions as we go, you can type those into the chat and we will answer all of those questions at the end. You can use that chat feature as your way to get an idea of what's going on. So to start with, I wanted to tell you, we're going to start off kind of like with the big end goal. So we're starting with that 30,000 foot view, and then we're getting down to the little more details. So ultimately, before students go off to college, they will be taking an ACT and or an SAT. All juniors will take an ACT for free during the spring of their junior year. This year that will take place in March. And the ACT is set up with 4 different sections: an English, a math, a reading, and a science. And each of those sections are scored on a scale of 1 to 36. And then those 4 scores are averaged together to give students a composite score, which is also between 1 and 36. In addition, there is an optional writing test. Some colleges want that. A lot of them have moved away from it. So you'd want to look at your individual colleges. The writing test is not a part of the test that's offered for free in March to students. So the ACT and the SAT is the other test that students have the option of taking. That one is an evidence-based reading and writing test. And each of those, the English and the math sections, are scored on a scale of 200 to 800. And then those scores are added together to give an overall score between 400 and 1600. And so students have the option to take either of those tests. They will automatically be taking that ACT for free during their junior year. But the colleges treat the tests interchangeably. So some students may gravitate more towards the SAT, and that's totally okay. And some may like the ACT better, and that's totally okay, because colleges will take those interchangeably. So we know that in the end that's where students are heading, but they're going to be taking this ACT or SAT in order to use as a component of their applications for college. One of the big things, though, is that we want to make sure that they peak at the right time with their testing series. And that can become a challenge for kids that we've seen happen, unfortunately, a decent amount. And so we're really trying to make sure we're pushing and sharing that information with parents so that pushing your child too early can sometimes backfire, that when they get to their junior year, they don't want to do these things anymore. So when they get to the junior year, and you'll hear this from Mrs. Mann in a little bit about information about why taking the PSAT in their junior year is really a critical time to take it. And kids will say, I took it as a sophomore, so I'm not going to take it again. And that's not the direction we want anyone to go. So we want that peak to be at the right time so that they are engaged with their learning, that they are where they want to be with their classes, and that they're able to show those colleges, this is who I am, and this is my best test score. And so we don't want them to get burned out before we even make it there in that process. So again, if we start on that right-hand side with the end in mind, again, sorry if you can hear those bells, we know that kids are going to be taking the ACT, for example, and this same concept can work, even though the little chart across the top is talking with regards to ACT, the same timeline can happen for kids when they're looking at the SAT. but they're going to take that ACT for free in March. A lot of students are going to plan to take your ACT or your SAT probably twice. Statistics say that when you repeat the test, that would your scores tend to increase, not necessarily a lot, but you do better because you know what to expect on the test. Along those same lines is why we're going to talk about the importance of the PSAT and the pre-ACT, because you're going to learn what to expect on the test. Sometimes students will look at the December ACT in particular, because that is a test that students have the option. It's called test information release, that if you want, it is not a requirement, and there is an additional cost of about $30. If a family wants to request to get a copy of the actual test, the answers that the student gave and what the correct answers are. And so that's a nice opportunity if a student is going to use it, and you know your son or daughter best to know, is that $30 to get those test answers useful or not. If they're going to use it to help study and prepare and look at, oh, I clearly don't know how to do quadratic formulas very well, I probably need to go back and brush up on that information again before they take that March ACT, then that could be a good use of additional costs. If your student is one who's definitely not going to look at it, definitely not going to use it to study and review, then it's probably not worth your time. But the December test is one of those tests where you can do that. I believe it's the December, April, and June tests are the tests that have that test information release. So there are 3 tests. December and June are 2 of them. I think the third one is April. But students can sign up for that when they're signing up for the ACT, if that's something that they want to keep in mind. And the March ACT test date doesn't have to be their last test date. That can be their first main ACT date. It's just a personal preference with the student and the family as to whether they want to take more after that. So you know what your April, May, June, July, August, September, October look like. And if that's a better time to take a test than in December. And so everyone and their families are different. Kids are involved in different sports and different activities, different travel plans. And so all of that can impact when a student is deciding to take those tests. And so you do just want to keep in mind that you are probably looking at taking those tests twice. But before that, you have a chance that students can take the PSAT and the pre-ACT. And those are opportunities for students to be able to get an idea of where they are and what they're wanting, which can also help them figure out which of the tests I might like better. So I might be able to use the PSAT to say, I like this one better than the pre-ACT, which can help guide them as they're looking to prepare for the actual tests. In addition, when we're talking about test prep, if you talk to ACT and SAT, they will say your #1 best test prep is a rigorous high school curriculum. Taking the classes that your students are taking, which are college prep here at Kilbourne, is what's going to help them. Most of the students, their Math 3 curriculum is stuff that's going to be on the ACT, for example, in that math section. And so when students are taking that test, for example, as a freshman, when they haven't had the concepts of maybe Math 2 or Math 3, then that can feel really overwhelming to them and can sometimes be discouraging to them when they're trying to build up that confidence that they are going to be great college students, that they can share that best information. So knowing that the classes that they're taking and what they're doing every day in class and what they're learning is helping them to prepare for that test. Students can use their PSAT scores and pre-ACT scores to connect to some free online resources. There's a lot of stuff out there that is free. And then there's also tutoring opportunities that are available. And we do have information with links to all of that, including some of the paid tutors that are connected to our community that students can take advantage of. And I wouldn't worry about that necessarily for the practice tests. And again, the best preparation is a rigorous curriculum. So it's not something that you have to do when you are looking at taking the actual ACT or SAT either. Where people tend to find benefit in doing some of the test prep things is, knowing your own son or daughter. Are they someone who will review it on their own and just, get a feel for what it's going to be like using the online stuff that's free? If so, awesome. That's going to be, your best case scenario. If they're not someone that would do that, then, you might need to look at a tutor, someone to help hold them accountable so that they can do the practice that they need to do. And I know we had a family that I was talking to, and she said, with her first daughter, they didn't do any ACT prep. The second daughter didn't want to do any, and so they didn't. And then with the third daughter, she wanted to, and her score went up. And so even though they had put that $500 into an individual tutor that she worked with one-on-one, they ended up getting $2,000 a year back. So that was $8,000 in scholarship. So different families are going to have different dynamics and what's going to work for them, what's going to be financially feasible, but you don't have to pay for a tutor. That's not something you have to do. There are plenty of free options. And again, doing other things like looking at your resources that are online, as well as the opportunities that we have here at school. And that's what Mrs. Mann is going to talk about next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Mann, one of the counselors here. I work with students' last names KR through RI. So as Ms. Abbott was talking about that test preparation, the PSAT is one of those areas that you can help to prepare, or the student can help to prepare them for ACT, SAT. The PACT, that P stands for practice. It's I'm sorry, I said ACT. SAT, PSAT stands for practice, SAT. It is open to sophomores and juniors. This year, we will be offering that PSAT on Wednesday, October 12th. It is free of cost to your family. You do need to register by September 13th. We're going to, Ms. Abbott just put in the chat the actual Google link that you'll just click on to get your child registered for that. This was the same test that students were registering for when they went through scheduled pickup day in August. So if they filled that out during their, it was first week of August, second week of August, when they came to get their schedules, then they don't need to do it again. If you're unsure if they signed up or not, you can check in with your counselor, but just go ahead and click on that Google link. That will get them registered for the PSAT. PSAT for our sophomores, it's just the practice. For our juniors, however, that NMSQT, that's the last bullet on this slide, that stands for National Merit State Qualifying Test. So if our juniors take that and they score in the top percent, and I can't give you that percentage because it changes every year based off the applicants or the pool of students that take the PSAT their junior year. If students score high enough, then that is how they are a national merit contender or a national merit scholar. So it is based off their results from the PSAT. So that would be the advantage of having a junior take the PSAT. Yes, it's great practice. However, their scores, that's what also qualifies them to be national merit commender or scholar. The pre-ACT. So we just talked about the PSAT. That's one of the test prep options. Another test prep option is the pre-ACT. This is open to just sophomores and juniors. And we are holding it November, what does it say on the slide? My box is over it, November 10th. And that will be right here at school. So, and the PSAT is also at school. They'll be right in our auditorium or in our gymnasium. The cost for the pre-ACT, it'll be approximately $16. So we understand the PSAT is free. There is a small fee attached to the pre-ACT. Registration for the pre-ACT will begin probably early October, and information will be shared on our counseling website and will also be, I'm sure, emailed out. The sign up for the pre-ACT is going to be a two-step process. It'll be a Google form, very similar to PSAT, but then that second part would be going into My Payments Plus system and paying for the pre-ACT. So again, that is going to be held on November 10th. We linked Khan Academy on here. Khan Academy is an online program. They offer some test prep options. There's also some YouTube videos attached with it. So that could be a good resource for your child. ACT Academy, this is also a free prep program that students can get right online. A lot of this is more students preparing for their test on their own. They're not working directly with a tutor, but this is a free preparation program that students can use. Okay, so here is more information, ACT and SAT. ACTstudent.org, that is how you will register for the ACT. Students do not register with their counselor, except their junior year. They'll take it, it's typically end of February, beginning of March. All juniors will take the ACT here at Worthington Kilbourne. And that's every year. Our juniors every year take it. Students do not need to apply for that one. But for any other, if you wanted to take it in a summer or in a fall month, then you do need to register your child on your own. www.collegeboard.org, that's how you register for the SAT. And then fairtest.org, that is, that will give you a list of schools, colleges that students can attend that do not require a test score. Which, speaking of test scores, there are a lot of colleges with the pandemic shutdown. A lot of the colleges had to go to a test optional model. They did this because when we shut down in March 2020, testing centers shut down. They were shut down that whole summer. So students weren't given a fair opportunity to take the ACT and the SAT before being admitted to a college. So most of colleges went into what is called a test optional model. That means that student applications are reviewed as part of a holistic review. And if a test score, SAT or ACT, is not submitted, that will not put that student at a disadvantage for the application process. That just means that there has to be a higher emphasis on other parts of the application. So the essay or the student's extracurricular activities or community service needs to be, that's where the emphasis of their college application needs to come through. Students need to look closely at the individual college. And in most cases, we're kind of a year by year basis as to whether or not the college will continue to be test optional. For example, Ohio State is test optional this year. We don't know if they will continue to be test optional for admitting students the following year. So right now they are test optional for admitting students autumn 2023 on their campus. We are not sure about autumn 2024. So if this is something that you want to research with your student, please look individually at each college as it tends to change. And a lot of the colleges, like I said, are doing a year-to-year basis. Also, make sure, even if you apply to a college as test optional, if you're applying to a specific program, like if you're applying to the engineering program or the nursing program, they may require a test score. So although Ohio State is test optional, those specific programs may require an SAT or ACT score. So if your student is interested in a specific program at a college, make sure that you're getting online and checking out what are the requirements to apply for that program. And that's about it, guys. Join us again. We want these to be like quick, sit and get, like we want to just present information because we as the counselors, we have all of this information and sometimes it's just difficult getting it all out. So the Lunch and Learn series is our way of kind of outreaching with you all, our stakeholders, and we're so happy that your students come to this school. So our next Lunch and Learn will be October 14th, and the topic of that will be what to do if my child has a D or an F. And then the next slide is just our contact information with email address. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Mrs. Schnell is out on maternity leave right now. We have Mrs. Gratz filling in for her, and then Mrs. Gratz will be here at the end of September. We do have a new sub coming in to fill in for her. We don't have her email address at this point, but if you have any questions, feel free to email myself, Miss Abbott, or Mrs. Lord, and we'll make sure to get back in touch with you or connect you with the sub for Mrs. Schnell. So we have about 11 minutes.
And we're going to,
Yep,
we've got some questions already.
Coming in. All right.
Yeah, so thank you for those of you who've already submitted some questions. So we're going to answer those. I know the first question that came up is, what grades are able to take the pre-ACT. And it used to be that kids, freshmen, sophomores, and even juniors were allowed to take the pre-ACT. It is not anymore. Now it is a test that only sophomores and juniors can take because of how ACT has renormed their test. And so it is only open for sophomores and juniors. So we don't have any testing experiences that are the free or really low fee practice opportunities for those freshmen to take. In large part, that's also something that we haven't, pushed back to ACT or SAT because, that it fits with the burnout piece that we've been seeing with some of the kids. And so I think that's probably why that has happened across the country.
The next question is, if a student takes PSAT or the pre-ACT as practice and did not get a good score, will that impact the college application? No. Colleges will not see those scores. These tests and the booklets that you will get with them, it's just for practice. So then the student knows what area do I maybe need to prepare in, what was my lowest score. So it will not negatively impact the college application process.
And yes, this is being recorded and it'll be up there's a chance I'll get it up today before the end of the day, but it will probably be sometime next week that it'll be up on the counselor website. So wkhscounselors.com is our go-to place for information for anything. There's a whole testing section on the website. But it has information about all things related to college and career and academics and personal social. And if you ever have questions, you can always use the search feature on the website. It's really our main place, but we will have this link up on the counselor website in the coming week. Hopefully before then, but at least within this next week sometime. So Dr. Boyd is asking because there are so many different test prep options out there, if we survey kids with good scores to see what they think worked best. No, we haven't done that. It's very individual to each student, and what works best for one student doesn't work well for another. So we have some students who do just fine in a group setting and they like that. And then other kids really struggle with that because maybe their strengths aren't the same as the majority, and they would do better with a one-on-one tutor. And so every kid is different and individual in that. And there are kids who don't do any test prep. And I've got a student who didn't do any test prep and has gotten a perfect score. So, it's all across the board. Obviously a perfect score is not the norm. So don't anticipate that for your child. Just be pleasantly surprised if that happens. But it does even happen for that too.
And the next question, is it a good idea to have the test scores sent out to colleges automatically? That is going to be student and family preference. So when you do register, you have an opportunity to send your scores to a couple of the colleges for free. If you are not sure if you want to, I guess I should back up and say, even if you send your test scores and you apply to that college as test optional, they will not review your test scores. So if you want to take advantage of sending your scores for free, then yes, automatically send them to the college, but just know that if your test scores were automatically sent, that does not mean that you are automatically applying to that college as test scores part of your application. You do have the option to still apply as test optional. Any other questions?
If some ACTs and answers are available for purchase, can one get copies of those from any school, library, or other resources? I don't know. I know that they're given directly to the students that buy them. I don't know that they would be made available. I think eventually those are probably the exact same ones that end up in their actual ACT official test prep books. I think those are all retired tests. And so those tests are the dates that they're retiring that test, which is why they release it to students. So my guess is those are the same ones that will eventually end up in those test prep books that ACT puts out. Lots of good questions. We love this. That's the best part, is being able to answer your questions, because we know it can be really overwhelming, especially if it's your first child going through it, or maybe you had somebody that was, I'll do it myself, I'll take care of it. And then wanting more information, later on down the road.
Next question is, how can I find free tutors? So the information, I'm not aware of any specific tutors that do not charge a fee, but there are the test prep, like we had mentioned, Khan Academy, the ACT Academy, Princeton Review. Like we saw, those do have some free options online. In terms of free tutors, I'm not aware of any. Miss Abbott, are you?
Yeah. So again, with free, you're generally going to be watching, like doing Google search and look for things. If we ever get information about free opportunities, like she was saying, like Princeton Review, or I know Dr. Sampath has done some things in the past for free. And so anytime something like that happens, that's happening for free, we try to make sure that we post that information on the counselor website as well, if we hear about them and have the opportunity. The question is, when should one take a test prep course? Again, when we're looking at this, it's going to be a lot of individual preference. I would say the majority of students don't end up taking test prep classes, but if you do want to take a test prep course, then sometimes students will take it before their first test. Sometimes they'll take it in between their first and their second. They want to see how they did on their own, and then realize, oh, I need to do more. This isn't the score I wanted. This isn't what I thought I could get. And then they'll do test prep then. So it's really a personal preference as to what kids want to do. I know a lot of kids will do it before they take the test the first time, because they want to just try and one and done it. And that's great too, that you can go in there and try and do your very best. And then if you do need to repeat it, you can review and refresh off of the information that you have already learned in your test prep course, to be able to study and review that information before you take it again.
Okay, next question is what is the ideal junior course load that also preps you? So that's going to look different for all of our students. So if our students are kind of on the honors path, where they're taking the honors English 1, the honors English 2, then their junior year, a natural flow would either be an IB English course, an AP English course, or the College Credit Plus. That also, we have some of our students are doing the STEM cohort. So it really is kind of personalized for your child. But like Ms. Abbott had said, what ACT and SAT recommends is a rigorous course load. So taking advantage of AP courses, IB, College Credit Plus, honors, that is going to be what prepares you the most for these tests.
There was a question about, have we seen a study comparing the success in college readiness of test optional students versus test takers in college? And so that's one place that, because really the vast majority of colleges went test optional with the 2020, 2021 application time, because it was so crazy. The numbers is data that colleges are looking at. Now, there has been test optional for a long time. Test optional is something that has existed, and some very competitive schools have used test optional for a long time, and they feel strongly that it's just one additional measure. And the colleges that do use test scores will also say it's just one additional measure that they're looking at with regards to the student. They're looking at the student as a whole, their holistic self. So, their grades, their test scores, but also their leadership, their essay, their involvement, their areas of passion. There's so much to make up a student beyond just a test score. And so colleges are committed to looking at all of that information. But there has been a ton of research that's happening right now, and where Mrs. Mann was talking about what OSU was talking about, and they are working with College Board and ACT, and there's a massive study that's currently underway that they're looking at all of that data. And so I think that's going to really shape things as we move forward to see where all of these colleges land. I have noticed that more schools than I expected have started moving back to requiring tests, like Mrs. Mann was saying, for particular majors, and then, wanting them as an additional data point. So it'll be interesting to see what is yet to come, but I know that a lot of that research is currently being done about, like OSU talked about, a lot of their students that are applying test optional are underrepresented students. So that's a great thing if that's giving them that opportunity, and that they are still students that are very competitive academically for the school. So there's going to be a lot of data yet to come because this is in the large quantities that it is happening now. It is a relatively new thing in the grand scheme of college admissions, even though it's been there for a long time with a smaller group of colleges.
Are there separate test prep courses for the SAT and the ACT? Yes, there are. And like, obviously Pre-ACT Academy is going to focus primarily on ACT. Khan Academy will focus on both, but they'll kind of direct you as to what you want to really focus on. Like the ACT Accelerator, that's obviously for the ACT. So yes, they distinguish between the two. I'm not sure about the California.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. Okay, it's 12:30 and this concludes our Lunch and Learn. We appreciate you being on here. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to your student's counselor.
Have a great day, everybody. See you in October.